I'm not so sure about the angle on this camera. I'm a little bit boobs ahoy, but never mind. Okay, I mentioned some time ago that I'm finishing off my degree, so I need to sort out a portfolio that I can put everything in. I've got a couple of binders and things, but they're all looking rather raggedy and overused. So what I'm going to do is rejuvenate with a little bit of crafting know-how. So I've taken an old folder. This one, the binder bit in the middle was rusty and the teeth didn't meet, so I'm upgrading. So what I'm going to do, I've just cut the spine off on the outside of the ridge, so I've got plenty here to back onto. So in order to make a spine on here, I'm just going to lay these against a ruler and just make a temporary spine using some masking tape. I don't want a lot of sticky in this because I'm going to sew things together rather than stick them, and trying to sew through sticky things doesn't really work that well. So just a couple of strips on this side and then turn it over and do the same on the other, just so it creates a gentle spine, holds them at the right distance apart. So I'm just pulling the card apart as I put the other piece on, so that they're not bagging, they're nice and tight. So that's giving me about 4 centimetres, so inch and 2/3. That's plenty enough for a carry handle to go into. So that can go one side, that can go one side. What I've got here is some lining fabric, it's plain lining fabric, and I've drawn out some hexagons. I started with these 2 templates and got one that is about 3mm smaller than the other on all sides. So I've used a small one to draw out the hexagons, and I used a big one to cut my pieces later on. So by all means, you can draw them on after you've put this together. I just thought it would be easier to do it this way. And here I've got some lining fabric. This is not a very fluffy fabric, but it's just enough to add some backing. Just make sure that sits flat like that. Okay, so I'm going to line up with the edge of the lining here and make sure that I'm lining up pretty much with the edge of the hexagons. So again, I'm not using glue, so clips are coming out. So I'm going to line this up so that the bottom edge of the hexagon just comes over by a couple of mil here, so that I've got an edge to fold over and finish with. So I've just cut the corners off at a rough angle just so it folds under. It doesn't really need to be particularly neat at this point. So now I need to count up how many shapes I need. So rather than counting individually, if you count up one row, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So say 8 whole ones plus 3 here. So 8 5 is 40, so 43 whole ones I need, plus a number of halfway theirs. So put that to one side, and now I'm turning to my leather scraps. So I've already started to mark out these, and it's going to come out better. And when I'm marking not only whole ones, but also the off shapes, the end shapes, so that I've got those to use for the edges. So I need to cut 43 whole ones and keep any offcuts and non-straights. So again, not using the smaller templates, I'm using this slightly larger template for this, so that when I put them together there's an overlap, so that it will kind of quilt together that way. So I'm going to do some more cutting because I think I've only got about 30 drawn out here, so I'm going to draw out some more and then come back to you for the actual construction part. Don't know if you're going to pick that up, but my next door neighbour appears to be trying to kill his motorbike, so I apologise for the noise. Right, so I've cut out all my scraps. Is that really necessary? I've cut out all my scraps and I've made a kind of simple kind of diamond or chevron pattern. So now I've got to work out how I'm going to fit these to the board. So first things first, I'm going to be working in the layers. So if I take them off kind of by layer, stop it for 6 seconds. Right. There are variations between the colours here. I've got these creamy coloured ones, I've got 2 or 3 different shades, and the brown's got 2 or 3 different shades, but it's not going to matter in the long run. Not looking for that kind of stricter pattern or colour, really. Now for the corners, I've deliberately chosen whole pieces, so I've got a decent amount of leather to work on to get round the corner neatly. So if I start with the corners first, because they're going to have a different kind of treatment to the rest of it. So the first corner here, and the first thing I'm going to do is make some holes, because there's no way I can sew through the card, so it's just going to break more needles than I actually have. So I'm using an old bamboo coaster that's been well battered before, and just a steel nail. Doesn't matter what kind of nail you use, you need to be able to make a sturdy enough hole and get through the fabric and the cardboard. I don't know what he's trying to prove with that bike. He does this a lot. So now going to line up just beyond. You need to come in that extra 3 or 4 mil just so it sits on neatly. And because this is a corner, it's not going to go all the way around, and I'm not going to actually sew this one on, not yet at least. So what I'm going to do is a very, very small piece of double-sided, and I want to make sure it's away from the edge, because again I don't want to be sewing through sticky, and away from this top line. And just line it up and stick it on. Now this is easy if you try and align a corner with one of the major lines. That should get you in neatly. So this isn't going to have anything else done to it until the end when I actually go around and sort out the edges. So for now I'm just going to tuck under, if you see that. So I'm tucking in both sides and then pushing down so it's sitting pretty much flat. I'm just going to stick a clip on there just to hold that in place so that's out the way, it's not going to get tangled with anything else. So I'm going to do that on all 4 corners and then start working on the first row, so I'll come back to you for that bit. Okay, so I've gone around and done all the corners, and I've just unclipped this one so it's sitting flat and out of the way for this section. So I'm moving on to the next layer in. So in terms of maintaining the pattern, I'm going to keep going from the middle outwards as I go around, so that way the pattern works in the same direction. So just a note, when you're cutting the bits for the ends, make sure you've got a decent amount of overhang so you've got something to play with later. So again, coming 2 or 3 mil beyond the line just to make sure it goes over. And I've gone around all of these shapes, even though I'm only sewing these bottom edges here for this one, so that the holes are ready there for the next layer. And again, especially on the edges, I'm making sure that my tape is nowhere near the outside edge or the stitching holes. This kind of tape isn't going to hold the leather permanently, it's just going to hold it until it's secured, really. So I'm clipping that down so it's held in, because again it's only going to get a line of stitching here for the moment till I move on to the next line. So hold on. No, that's a corner. That's a corner. So here there's about say a quarter of an inch of overhang here, which is probably a little short, but I can work with that. Okay, so I've turned this over and pinned and clipped it all in place. The little pockets are all just pinned through both layers, so it's gone all the way through and back through the turn. So now I'm working my way around the frame itself, or the box folder itself, and I'm only doing small sections at a time so that I can maintain the tension and keep it neat and tidy. I'm using a variation on the blanket stitch, which doesn't look great from this angle, but it looks okay from the other side. It's difficult to get a neat stitch on this side and get it strong enough to actually hold everything together. So I'm making my holes with my trusty nail about every quarter inch or so, and I'm about a quarter of an inch in from the edge. Okay, so I'm almost finished with the first round of stitching. Once I've gone round once and got it all secured, I'm then going to go round again so I can fill in the gaps, so it gives it a better kind of frame. So in the meantime, I've threaded through some cord to make my handle. I've got about 6 or 7 lengths here, double back on each other, and then a bit on the end so I can tie off. So it's just held in by a thin loop of cord. So I want to tuck that in so it's just beyond the edge, and I've placed an elastic band, you can see at this angle, around the reel here so it doesn't unwind on its own. So what I'm going to do, push it that way a bit more, is, oh, stay there, just twist this round, keeping tension. And just cover the whole of this bundle all the way to the other end. Tightly as possible. I'll sewing a couple of stitches at the end just to hold it in place so it doesn't undo. Okay, this is as finished as I want it to be. If I was trying to sell this on, I'd tidy up this edge, but I'm fine with it just being like this. So I've got my nice sturdy handle that's not going to go anywhere, and I've put a bit of elastic around here so that it will hold it closed when it's being picked up. So I've got my pad, it slips in there quite neatly, and that's not going anywhere. Got a pocket behind the pad, 3 pockets this side, and my cord for tying Polly Pocket document while it's on, and 2 loops for pens. So a couple of days work, not bad, but my fingers are killing me. So I'm going to take a rest from sewing for a considerable time until that recovers. So yeah, this project is done and I'm ready to start studying.